This is the Dark Knight vlog you need, not the one you deserve. Hi everyone, Last Angry Geek here. I thought we'd take a few minutes to talk about The Dark Knight Rises. Well, what did I think about it? I liked it. I think it works very well as the finale for the Nolan trilogy. Is it as good as The Dark Knight? No. It's Empire and Jedi, folks. It was never going to be as good as The Dark Knight. Bane, that first scene where they're in the airplane and that voice comes out and it's way too loud for someone who's muffled by a mask and it's louder than every other voice there. I almost feel like that was Nolan giving us the finger because of all the outrage in the trailers over Bane's voice. I can't understand him. Fine, we'll just pump it up to 11, see if they like it then. It was not the right voice for Bane, I think. I mean, it was almost supposed to be Caribbean, I heard. I don't know. Everyone said Sean Connery. It didn't sound like Sean Connery to me. It was, well, miss... It was more Captain Picard, wasn't it? Well, Batman, you've made quite an enemy out of me. It was a little too proper. I thought the voice sounded better in some of the later scenes, like the one, his appearance immediately after the plane. I thought, well, it sounded a little more proper. I don't know. The voice didn't work for me. Bane's a hard villain to wrap your head around. Because, in part, he fit the needs of the movie very well. Christopher Nolan said he liked Bane because Bane's kind of about testing Batman in his first appearance in Nightfall. And yeah, I get that, but I went to see the movie with my friend Dave, and he made the point that, after The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger's Joker, who's so very facially expressive, then to have to go to Tom Hardy, who's wearing a mask that just makes him impossible to have an expression. It's kind of a jump in the villains. But Bane made it possible to get to the twist at the end. He was both the right and the wrong villain for this. He was the right villain for the story Nolan crafted, but honestly, I probably would have picked a different villain for the finale. As far as the story went, Bane served a purpose in the story, and he got us to the end where we had the switcheroo. I won't spoil that for you guys, but the switch I liked. I enjoyed that, and we couldn't have gotten there if we didn't have Bane as the villain. So, who else? Anne Hathaway. Not bad. I really like the first scene where she's playing the maid of the mansion, then there's that kind of twist, and all of a sudden that's the Selina Kyle comes out, the smugness, the arrogance. I really enjoyed how she played the one character, Bern Gorman from Torchwood, playing the one businessman she was dealing with. Wow. I enjoy Bern's acting, but damn, that man looks like a carp. He looks like what I thought navigators must look like in the book version of Dune. If you ever read it, they're supposed to have Anyway, Anne did a great job. I thought she played the character very well. There's kind of this fun, she has this ability to play with men like a cat playing with a mouse, and she does that well. And at the same time, there's this kind of desperation underneath at the core where she just, I want out, but I can't get out. They never came right out and said it, but it's implied that she used to be a prostitute, and that kind of goes back to the Selina Kyle from the Batman Year One by Frank Miller. There are a lot of allusions to comic books, allusions with an A, not an I, and I appreciated that as a comic book fan. For instance, the whole thing where Gotham City gets cut off from the United States, that's no man's land. Batman has to work with Commissioner Gordon and the police, and they almost form kind of like a vigilante squad to keep order in the city, and that's kind of what happens here, where Gordon's operating under the eye of Bane and his criminals and working. He's essentially become the criminal now. He's working behind the scenes to subvert the new laws of Gotham City. And I like that. Holly was in it. Holly from the Catwoman comics. The blonde girl who was hanging out with Selina, that's Holly. Anyone who's read Catwoman knows the character, so I thought that was cool that she was thrown in there. Cillian Murphy came back for a third time as the Scarecrow, as Dr. Crane this time. He wasn't dressed up as a Scarecrow, although there was straw in his jacket. I like that touch. He played a kind of a judge in this thing, and that was okay. I'd rather we had Two-Face back because a cameo was a lawyer in this court, but what are you going to do? Michael Caine, I thought, did a great job, though his part was cut down a lot. Trying to talk Bruce out of the Batman lifestyle, and then just kind of shows up at the end. Oh, Falky, I'm so sorry, I failed you. Nolan tipped his hand a little with Michael Caine. He tells this story about what he had hoped would happen for Bruce, and and as soon as I saw it, that's the end of the movie right there. And yeah, it was. So storytelling's not always subtle, folks. Sometimes it's very obvious. Morgan Freeman did a fine job. Nothing to complain about there, really. Nothing to praise per se. I mean, he's always great, but it wasn't anything different from the first two movies. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I liked him. I thought he did a good job. My one complaint about Joseph Gordon-Levitt is the ending of the movie. I liked the little comic book nod they gave in there with his character, but at the end, come on. At the very least, we should have seen him once dressed up as, spoiler, he plays a character very similar to Bruce Wayne. He has this same kind of arc. He's an orphan. He gets disillusioned with the system and then decides to go out on his own. A lot of the casting people made guesses right away. Oh, this character's playing this part, this character's playing this part. And they all said, no, we're not. They were. But it's fun to see the journey. And I think he kind of takes over the kind of the Harvey Dent role in this one, where he's the kind of the new hero, aside from Batman, you're rooting for. But then it just, with Harvey Dent, it didn't work out with his character, the police officer. I can't remember the character's name. It does. So Joseph Gordon-Levitt did a great job, as always. He's very good with Nolan. If you haven't seen Inception, go see Inception. Why haven't you seen it yet? It's a great movie. Christian Bale, again, very good as both. He was more Bruce Wayne in this movie than Batman. In fact, my friend I saw it with, he at the end came out and said, is it wrong that I wanted more Batman in a Batman movie? Because he's retired at this point, and I know a lot of people had a problem with him being retired. Harry Knowles was very vocal about that on Any Cool News. I didn't have a problem with that, because with his parents dying, and that inspires him to become Batman, I mean, but it's someone else who does it. With Rachel's death, which is what caused him to retire, that kind of was his fault. Like, he kind of started acting out against the mob, and that's why they brought in the Joker, and that's why Rachel got blown up. So I could see the guilt kind of crippling him at that point. The one thing I didn't agree with was kind of with the end of the second movie, where he tells Commissioner Gordon, you'll hunt me. I thought that meant he was going to kind of keep fighting crime, that eventually the guilt would have gotten too much, the physicality would have gotten too much, and he retired. But it seems like, no, right after the second movie, he was gone as Batman. And I didn't quite buy that. But at the same time, because, I mean, we see him and he's got no cartilage in his knees, his body's all broken up. That's another illusion. That's Kingdom Come. He has to wear a brace in Kingdom Come, and he's got all these scars and stuff from a lifetime of being Batman, which is not something a normal human body was meant to do. The one nice thing about the Nolan movies is I've always felt they were how a superhero would be done in the real world. With the exception of the technology, I think everything is kind of based in the real world. And so obviously the physical problems would be there. But he wasn't even having any knee problems, and then he just retires. 8 years later, he has the knee problems. It would have been better if they put something in towards the second film where he's starting to have problems with his body from all the crime fighting. That would have made a more logical leap when we jumped into this film and we see that he's limping with a cane and stuff. And then, he straps on some tight brace and all of a sudden he can walk. It's a miracle! Also, hey, spinal surgery. All you need is a hammer. Ah! I can walk! What was that? If anything, he should have been more crippled after the hammer to the back. That was a bit of a stretch. The pit where you climb out reborn. I wonder what that was in reference to. That was the Lazarus pit, obviously. Marie Cotillard, I can't pronounce her last name, and I took French for 6 years. But she was very good. I thought she did a good job, both as the sympathetic character and then kind of what happens later. The scene where the twist happens, that was one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Like, oh, okay, yeah, we all saw it coming, but still was kind of cool. Christian Bale, we were talking about Christian Bale. Did a good job. Nothing to complain about there. Overall, my biggest problem with the movie was that it was kind of several mini-movies all clumped together. It wasn't as much one story as the last two were. This one, it's like you got Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character story, you've got Selina's story, you've got Bruce Wayne's story, you got Commissioner Gordon's story as he's trying to retake the city. I mean, there were a lot of different story arcs, and they didn't meld as well as they did in the previous films. Like I said, my friend said there was enough Batman in it. Yeah, because it really wasn't a Batman movie. It was a kind of a Gotham City movie at the end there, where we found all these different characters. So I kind of think it was the least of the Nolan trilogy. That's not to say it wasn't good. It was good. It's a well-told story. But I like it in the same way that I like the Star Wars prequels. And yes, I like the Star Wars prequels. Not Jar Jar, but everything else. In that it's good as part of the whole. But Dark Knight Rises works best as a sequel to Batman Begins. It's an even better sequel to Batman Begins than The Dark Knight is. Dark Knight is almost a day in the life of Batman's story with the Joker in there. It's really only significant for the introduction and death of Harvey Dent and then the death of the Rachel Dawes character. With The Dark Knight Rises, you get more of a thematic conclusion to what they started in Batman Begins. In Batman Begins, where it's all Gotham City needs a symbol, Batman's a symbol, anyone can be Batman. You know, that kind of thing is taken to the logical conclusion in Dark Knight Rises, where he truly becomes the symbol for the city's redemption and salvation. It really followed through on all the things they were setting up in the first one. So I think I've said everything I need to say about Dark Knight Rises. I liked it. It's well acted. It works great as a wrap-up to the trilogy. Not as good as not as good as Batman Begins, but good. Of the three summer superhero films, Avengers, Dark Knight Rises, Amazing Spider-Man in level of quality in my eyes. Certainly, I think the best told superhero story of the year. As I mentioned, Avengers, a lot of great moments. Amazing Spider-Man, they rushed a lot of stuff. Here, I think The Dark Knight Rises was a very well-told story, and it works excellently as a sequel to Batman Begins, and it works very well as a conclusion to the entire trilogy. Go see it. You know you're going to go see it. Until next time, folks, I'm the Last Angry Geek, and I'll see you next time on Comic Book Issues.